Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Lozano, and I'm part of the research room. And we're a space to make research by the people for the people.
Perfect synergy.
So today, we're going to actually be talking with one of our very own, Alex, and he's going to talk about one of his other papers. And this one's titled, it's another long title, Meta-analytic evidence that we talk predicts relationship and personal functioning in romantic couples. All right, Alex, take it away and tell us what this is all about.
I always forget how ridiculous these titles are until we do this.
They're so long.
Yeah. So this paper, also, sorry, viewers, that you're having to listen to me again. We promise this won't be the case soon, but for now, here I am. So this paper, we want to look at We Talk. So what is that? We just want to see first person plural use. Everything is so long in academia.
It really is. All the jargon, love it.
Yes. First person plural pronoun use is when we say words like we or us or our, anything that is saying like two or more people, instead of saying I or instead of saying you, we might say we. So that I'm trying to think of like the story of how like we even got on this project. It was like just one sort of random day in the lab. I remember like
It's always those random days.
My old advisor was like just talking to me about like some cool things, I imagine. And she brought up We Talk, and I was like, that makes sense. That like We Talk it reflects so many different things about like people's lives and like the ways that like they might just like view people or like view things or view their partner.
Yeah.
So she was also mentioning that like not many people find effects on it, even though like she thinks it's a real thing. I also thought it was a real thing. Like it makes sense again. But a lot of papers don't necessarily find it. So like we should probably look through and see like why is that happening, or like maybe if you do look across everything, like there is an actual like reliable effect. And that's all we decided to do with this was like we want to see, does We Talk relate to basically anything? and
Does
there's
it?
a
What is the answer?
it does, yes, it absolutely does. It relates to a lot of things. This was all within romantic relationships, and so I don't necessarily want to say like outside of this, but that we can talk about other kinds of social interactions as well. But I would say pretty confidently within romantic relationships, We Talk does positively relate to basically anything when it comes to your own well-being and your partner's well-being. So what does that mean? That you are in more satisfied relationships if you're more likely to use We Talk. You're more likely to do like positive behaviors and less negative behaviors with your partner. So you're more likely to like resolve that conflict if you end up having conflicts. It's not going to just like spiral out of control. You don't talk for weeks. And then what else was there? There was for mental health that you end up being you have more like positive health when it comes to you. Why am I saying it like that? Like,
I mean, positive health,
well,
that makes sense though. It's like different
yes.
health outcomes, right?
Mhm. It's both positive. It's positive for mental and physical things, but like your emotionality. So like you're more likely to have like more positive emotions, less negative emotions, and being more satisfied with life. And then also health behaviors that you're more likely to engage in like these positive kinds of health behaviors which would promote physical health. So like things like a positive exercise routine or like making sure that you're taking the medications that you need to be taking. So that's one half of this, and then the second half, and there's a ton of things that it relates to, is that you find these positive associations also when it comes to your partner. So even if I'm the person that's saying we or us or our, my partner is also going to have more positive things for them. They're also going to like the relationship more. They're also going to engage in more health behaviors. So and that usually means that like they're going to like help me with my health behaviors, right? Like it's this like partner kind of like deal.
That makes sense.
So
If you're
yeah, I
saying
mean,
we, you're probably like more likely to actually do those couple of things together. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So I would say in short, that's what it was, but like that was still a pretty long answer.
No, that's like a really great like summary of like what you were looking at and like what you actually found. So I think with that being said, so it seems like there's all these positive outcomes, but this is just like one predictor or like one thing.
Mm.
So like I don't know if I really necessarily believe that. So like couldn't there be other predictors, other factors that could relate to all these positive outcomes that people experience?
Yeah, no, definitely. One might even think about like attachment, but I'm
That's
talking
what
to
I
an
was
attachment
thinking.
expert. I don't want to bring up attachment, so let me get off of attachment.
We should talk about attachment now.
I mean, actually, I mean, We Talk does this is a separate paper, but We Talk does positively relate to like attachment indices. I'm not going to get into specifics there, but
Yeah,
they are very related. Like kind of like we were talking about last week, that if you're securely attached, that's also going to help your relationship, right? So like
right.
it would make sense that like this is a positive thing, attachment is another positive thing. If both of those things would probably like fuel a good partnership.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean exactly what you're saying, that like We Talk is not going to like save everything, right? Like it's not what relationships are built on and what's going to make them crumble. It's only one piece of the puzzle kind of thing.
Yeah. It's
But
an
I think it
important
is an important
part.
one, right? Yeah, exactly.
So, what is the whole
uh,
idea behind this? So, like, I think your paper mentions like interdependence theory. Do you want to kind of
hmm.
like talk a little bit how it like relates from that?
Yeah. So interdependence theory is basically just saying that like people affect other people. Like
Yeah,
I don't think the original theorist would like that wording, but I mean that's what it boils down to.
that's a good
That
summary.
people affect people. Like it's no nonsense here. Um, but yeah, I mean, just being aware of that fact, right? Like, I think that is actually a pretty real thing, that like people don't necessarily always realize that the things that we're doing is going to affect somebody else, and the things that people are doing are also affecting us. I think we like to think that we're a lot more in control of our happiness and things like that, but like it does go hand in hand with everyone else that's around us. If you are associating with like very negative like kind of energies, that's going to probably bring you down. And the same thing goes for like positive things, right? Like that funnels into you engaging in like more positive or negative behaviors as well. So just this whole idea that we're all kind of attached to some degree, is what that is. So
See, it all
why
boils
am I
down
talking
to
about this? Oh
attachment.
yeah.
Attachment. That's why. I'm kidding. In your own words.
I have some choice words, but I will refrain for now. Um, yeah,
Well, I guess
sorry,
I'll
I'm
ask
just thinking
another
about.
question. Now, I'll take us away from attachment since you don't want to
Mm.
talk about it. Do you think that we talk applies to everyone, or do you think
Mm.
it's just like certain individuals? Like, just like looking at this, right? I mean, it would make sense that if certain people are saying we all the time, right? Doesn't that kind of indicate that somebody might be like a little clingy and too dependent on somebody like in the relationship? So for me, it kind of seems like there could be negative consequences associated with We Talk. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a super good point. That so We Talk is hopefully reflecting something, and that something in this case we think is interdependence. And so interdependence, it can be a very good thing, it could be not so good of a thing. And when it's not so good of a thing, it does kind of go into this realm of like what society might call clingy. I think I don't want to necessarily label people as clingy, but like
Yeah.
there's definitely like a threshold on how much you should be attached to your partner. Your partner's life should not be 100% your life, right?
Right.
You need to have your own space. You need to have your own like autonomy and like independence and like thoughts and emotions.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's super draining on the other person too, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, all of these things, I think that makes sense, that I mean, maybe certain people use we more often than others. Our research, like, it kind of doesn't matter if people are using more we talk or less we talk. It's all about like the relative nature. So like uh, someone, let's say it's you. Let's say you are saying we 100 times a day,
I
and
do
I
use it
use
a
it.
lot, so that would make
That
sense.
makes sense. Yeah. So if you're saying it 100 times a day, and maybe I say it 10 times a day, like anyone could see that and be like, oh, obviously you are saying we more often, right? But actually, it depends on like the proportion. So like if you say it 100 times, but you say 1,000 words a day, I mean, hopefully you're saying more than 1,000 a day. That's not actually
Just
that
we
many.
constantly.
But if you're saying 1,000, that's like what? That's 10%, right? Okay, yeah,
I
that's
think so. I can't
10%.
do math in my head.
But and if I said we 10 times, but I'm only saying 100 words a day, that's also 10%. So
Right.
both of those are equivalent. I mean, there are other like differences there, but like the amount of we talk that I'm saying relative to everything else is the same. So that's what matters more. It's not these like actual like just frequencies, it's the proportion of we.
That makes sense.
So yeah, we want to be able to account for that because obviously people are, some people are very wordy, some people are not so wordy. um, if you if you are listening to this, you probably think I'm a very wordy person.
And he is.
And
He
you
is.
are right. Yes. I don't know
Correct.
how to write anything less than 10 pages. Like
When he writes notes, they're like 30 pages long. I mean, just saying.
I have issues.
We all do. It's
Or
okay.
yeah, we all do. That's the spirit.
Example and point.
So yes, this idea of like clinginess or like codependency, that's not like what this research is like advocating for though. I and honestly, like it doesn't even test for like that kind of stuff necessarily. Most people in these samples, like people might say we maybe 1% of the time, and like often it's like less than 1% of the time.
Yeah,
So it's not like it's an overuse of we, I don't think.
that's good.
um yeah. I think I would probably say more than anything, like you need balance, and we is a part of that balance, to like also incorporate your partner to things.
Definitely. So, kind of while we're on the topic of this, so why do you even look at word use in general? So, like, what is the benefit of doing that? And can you also speak to Luke? So, it's called the
Mm.
linguistic, let's see if I can actually get this out, linguistic inquiry word count. So, can you kind of talk
Mhm.
about why you use studies that had that specification?
Yes. So word use in general, it's kind of, it seems like such a straightforward thing, but it's actually like a pretty tricky thing. So what do I mean by that? Like words, words are words. They mean certain things. Like there's no doubt there, right? Like if I say I'm sad, like how else are you supposed to really interpret that? Like that
Yeah.
makes sense. But then there are other things that you might say that uh, like it's people don't necessarily understand people for this kind of reason, right? Like they say a certain thing, but like they might mean a different thing, or like um, maybe they just don't quite know like the right words, like put that feeling or statement or thought.
Right.
Um, so like it gets like very tricky for those kinds of reasons. Um, but like why? So why would we use it then? We do think that like words in general, either directly or indirectly, they do show like what your psychology is. They show what those thought processes are, and like it's just you expressing those like out loud. Like how else are you supposed to do that? Like you can ask people certain questions, maybe they can say yes or no, or like how much they agree to things, but like you also want to be able to do this like implicitly, because if you're asking people straight up like do you like your partner, like people can lie, like that's
Yeah.
and people do lie, right?
I do. Yeah.
So we want to be able to have like these other indices to see like do things match up. Like you're saying you do, but like your actions are really showing that like maybe you don't really like your partner. And so this is one of those things that like if you're saying we, it's an indication. It's not like the only indication, but it's definitely one that I think would I don't want to say these words. I wanted to say coalesce. Like, what does that even mean?
I think that makes sense. I'm not a walking dictionary, so I can't fact check you, but I think so.
They align with like you value your partner at least enough to like also make them a part of your identity, right? Like you could just
Yeah.
say I, but you're not. You're allowing yourself to like incorporate your partner. So this is one of those things that like by using word use, like it's hard to lie about the words you're using. Like you can do that for maybe a little bit, but like in the long haul, it's very hard. Like people
Yeah.
have their patterns of talking, they have their deep-seated ways of thinking.
In that sense, it's
And
way
it,
better than like a self-report because, like, as you mentioned, people can lie, and they give like socially desirable responses to things. So
right.
language is just like your pattern of like how you say things, it's your behavior. So that makes sense.
Hmm. Yes, exactly. So then we use Luke, the linguistic inquiry and word count. Dang it. I think
It's a
that's it.
long title.
And it automatically will calculate these proportions, which is a great thing. But it has its drawbacks, of course. And we didn't only use Luke for these. Like there are like other software programs out there that are not like as widely used as Luke, but I mean primarily it was Luke, and then there's these other ones. But yeah, it gets the, as long as you have something written out and you have that transcript, it will get the proportions of words. So it doesn't only get like first person plural pronouns, it also will get like those how much you're saying I or me and like you, but then also like how many emotions, like are they more positive, are they negative, are they anger, are they sadness,
Yeah.
other like thought processes that are happening. So there's a lot of things that we could potentially get from that, but we decided to focus on this we aspect because it seemed particularly important for relationships.
So these studies, I'm assuming, right, they come from like different things or different methods. So it's like interviews, for instance, that you're like pulling the language from, right, and using Luke on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like interviews, narratives that people write, things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yes, exactly. So, luckily, there was quite a bit of diversity in the kind of studies that were run. So, there were interviews where people would ask either one or both of the partners just what do they think of the relationship, or even just like in life, like what are they doing? And they might bring up their partner. They might also say things like "we" or "us" or "our," and it's very indicative again, like just offhand, like how are they bringing up their partner, right?
Right.
Um, so that there's that kind of thing. There's also like written form, like maybe they were responding to a prompt, like tell us about like your day, or tell us about like a positive thing that happened, a negative thing that happened, and like again, they will bring up their partners because these are all people that are in romantic relationships. Generally, the prompt is like about that. So yeah, they'll bring up that, then and they could again like they could either say like, oh, my partner was like such a not good word. um, and you can
Bad day
see,
in the relationship
right,
department.
exactly. But you can see the separation there. Like that person is saying my partner, and like they're separating them and putting them out here rather than like we had an argument, like as if they're both a part of that situation. It's like,
Right.
oh no, this is my partner's fault, and that's kind of
Not
it.
mine.
Mhm. So yeah, that was happening, and then we also had just everyday life. So people wearing recording devices, something that we've also talked about on this podcast,
Yeah.
wearing the electronically activated recorder or the ear. They just wore that over a weekend or two. And then we saw in everyday life how they're using we. So yeah, definitely a variety of things here.
Interesting. All right. So my next question has to do with, so one of the positive outcomes that you found, right, had to do with like romantic relationship. Was it satisfaction or it had to do with like functioning, right, with couples?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it's the case that, you know, we talk so predicts whether like people are going to be satisfied, or is it
Mm.
the case that satisfied couples, they're more likely in general to actually use we talk?
Right. Yeah, so that's a super important like I don't, I don't know if I necessarily want to say it's a limitation, but it is a limitation of this
Yeah.
work, that we don't necessarily know what's causing what. we certainly have thoughts, but we don't know if it's the word use that's causing these positive things to happen, or if it's positive, if people that are just like experiencing these more positive kind of like communication patterns and things like that with their partner, like maybe those people end up saying leave, because they end up being more committed, they end up being more interdependent, they end up being more invested, things like that, right?
Right.
So I cannot say with confidence, at least not confidence that is evidence based. But we do think like theoretically that it's well, actually no, because there's so many things that go on with that. So I don't know if I even want to say a directionality necessarily. Because this idea of like interdependence, like that could happen beforehand, that could happen after the fact. There's so many different ways that could play out. And we also don't even necessarily know if we talk actually reflects interdependence. Like there's a lot
Right.
of theoretical guesswork happening here. I think they make sense, but like they do need a little bit more work done. And I was starting some of that before I left and
And it's
wasn't able
not
to quite answer it.
finished. Oh
Right.
no. Well, maybe somebody one day will take that up and will know the answer to this question.
Mhm.
All right. So I have another question to you, which clearly I have lots of them because We Talk is so cool. So do you think that We Talk might work for other kinds of relationships? So you kind of mentioned
Mm.
this before, right? You were like, oh, I don't want to extrapolate and generalize, which is good. But do you think that potentially, right, that this could actually work for friendships? This could work for like things like your teammates, work
Hmm.
collaborations, things like that?
Hmm. That is such a good question for someone who actually talks to people.
That
Let's
was
see.
great.
um, I I would think on the whole it probably is positive, but like, and this isn't even necessarily something we've talked about yet. That like, I think it could very well be a negative thing within romantic relationships. I think it could also be a negative thing within like other kind of people in your life.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on like maybe even mutually like agreeing, like, is this the kind of like relationship that we have? Like,
Right.
if someone is like too close to you, like if you're a colleague and they're always saying we, and it's just like, no, like we're just
Yeah. We're separate entities. Come on. We're not a part of the whole here. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes that can just like weird people out, and it's in these relationships that aren't meant to be like intimate like that, but I mean sometimes it does also just like show like camaraderie, right? Like that,
Right.
like, hey, we'd actually like worked on this together, like or like we are a part of this team. um but just being a part of like a collective like that absolutely is like a great like feeling, right?
Yeah.
um so yeah, I mean, as with most things, it could go either way.
I
But
mean, considering all the
I think,
positive outcomes, I mean, that
yeah.
would potentially be a good thing, right? So if it does
Mhm.
foster like things like, positive outcomes like, I don't know, communication patterns that are effective, I would imagine like in a work setting, that would actually
Mm.
be beneficial in some ways.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I think you should probably just go out and try and see. I think it's relatively low stakes here where you can try.
I'll be the next We Talk researcher. Stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Hmm. I think people would appreciate that until they don't.
Exactly. They'll be like, we've had enough of We Talk. We're going to have
Yes.
I Talk from now on.
Hmm.
Forget you.
You can have Liz talk and don't ever include me again.
Liz Talk. I like how that sounds. That sounds phenomenal. All right.
It had a ring to it.
It does. It does. All right. Well, I do have one more question
Hmm.
because I'm on a roll here today.
Yeah.
So I did not have this on my list before. So hopefully it doesn't take you off guard as you're like,
I leave.
so bye. So I think it's interesting that in this meta-analytic study that you have, that there's no evidence, well, there is evidence of partner effects, right?
Mm.
Whereas some of my past work that we talked about, was it last week? Yeah,
Mhm.
show that there were no partner effects. So like, what do you make of that? Do you think that's just like a weird fluke, or do you think there's something going on there?
Yeah, I think I would say that it kind of just depends on the concepts that are happening, right? So in for specific things, I think actor effects are probably a lot stronger than partner effects.
Yeah,
And something like a sense of yourself, and when it comes to like attachment, like I think that actually makes sense that hopefully your attachment wins out as far as like predicting your own relationship satisfaction. Well, for these other things, especially something that is inherently not just about yourself, when it's we, right?
yeah,
I think it would make sense that there would be both actor and partner effects. And actually, like the strongest effects that we had were the partner effects. It wasn't necessarily the actor effects.
interesting.
Um, yeah, and so this brings up like a huge point actually that I've neglected. Um, so these partner effects, if they are stronger than actor effects, what else might that mean for like what we talk reflects? It's interdependence, yes, but like I think it's also a very supportive thing. And I guess maybe we're even alluding to that with like some of the colleague stuff or like the teamwork kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
It's just it's supportive to like know that somebody else is on your side and like they're willing to like attach their identity to yours.
right.
um, so that's it's especially helpful in times of like stress. If you know that somebody's there and they're like saying, hey, we can get through this, rather than like, hey, good luck with that, like
Yeah, it makes you feel better. You're like, oh, great, I have somebody who's on my team, and is there for
right.
me.
Hmm. So it was especially prominent with patient populations. So what I mean by that is someone who is coping with cancer or someone who's going through diabetes, like just their everyday life. If they have a partner that's saying, like we can go to the doctor. Let's make sure that you have the right medications, whatever.
Yeah,
Like that kind of stuff is like helps shoulder some of the burden that's on the patient, and that seems to be a great thing
yeah,
for
definitely.
people. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. All right. Well, do you have anything that you want to say as like a last message or something about
Mm.
the study, or like, I need to say this? The public needs to know.
Absolutely, because I don't think I have clearly said, don't just start saying we in every situation. Like, please don't do
We.
that. And if you ever email me, never use the word we. um,
I don't want to be your teammate.
yeah. So why do I say that? One, because we don't know the causal effect, right? We don't
Yeah.
know if we actually changes anything, or if it's just kind of like a consequence of these some like good things. But also, uh, there's so many reasons why don't you shouldn't just say we. That is one reason. Second reason is that, um, it's not good in every situation. It's not always going to be positively related. There's plenty of negative things that can happen from that. It could potentially like enable some negative behaviors if you are being too supportive in times that like maybe the support isn't necessary,
Yeah.
or like it's overly supportive. Like what does that mean? Not to be overly supportive, but like
Lack of boundaries. That
um,
means you don't have effective boundaries, I think, for yourself if you're being too supportive, maybe.
right. Yeah. If you're letting go of like things that you know are positive for the sake of like your relationship, like it's kind of like that idea of like what are you willing to like let go of your moral like grounds on, like
Yeah.
to people please? Hopefully not.
No.
So like that's kind of same principle I think applies here. Again, it's not necessarily tested just yet, but I think it makes sense just kind of like logically that if you're saying we too often, like you might start to bring about some negative behaviors that you weren't trying to bring about. So don't just start saying we, like still have your own identity, still let your partner be your partner, right? Like
Yep.
they don't always want to be attached to you. I guess also, sorry, you should never allow me to have a last word.
Well, the last word that you just said was attachment. So I feel like that's perfect. It sums up what we talk is. It's attachment theory. I'm kidding.
um, so yeah, I mean, honestly though, when it comes to attachment, like even going back to like the patient example, like if you are the partner of someone undergoing through like a chronic illness or something like that, like don't start to make the problem about like you, like
Yeah,
that's
that's
not good either,
terrible.
right?
It's about your partner,
um,
not about you.
exactly. You aren't the person that just went through chemotherapy. Like, please, like, be
Oh,
supportive, but like, um, yeah. So that kind of idea too, right? That like, don't just start saying we for that reason. Like, those boundaries are important, and like let people have their experiences as well. Like, you can
yeah.
empathize as much as you want to, but like still at the end of the day know that like they had their experience, it wasn't your experience, like that kind of thing.
That's what makes a relationship anyway, is like having your own set of experiences and like your shared experiences. Like if you don't have your
mm-hmm,
own separate ones, what's the point, you know?
mm-hmm. Yeah, what are you bringing to this relationship?
Essentially, right?
But wouldn't it be great to just date yourself?
Yeah, it
No,
would be.
okay.
I would love to
Okay.
date myself. That's what I'm looking for.
Too true. So yeah, I think those are my final thoughts. But we talk isn't everything. There are plenty of times where you shouldn't be using we talk, and even though it is positive across the board, like just always keep that in mind. It's not going to change your life if you just say we 100 times in a row. Like
Right.
context matters, like
It does.
all of that. So yeah, I'm hopefully more research is done on this kind of stuff. I mean, there definitely is. There's some like interventions and stuff that are coming out from this meta-analysis that are great. They're coming like helping that like patient population again, especially diabetes. I know that's like a pretty big thing that's coming positive impact from my work.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's
mhm,
awesome. When it can be applied, that's like the best case, you know?
exactly. But other than that, yeah, we can mean just so many things. Uh, I mean, I wish I could keep talking about this. I'm not gonna ramble on too
We
much longer.
should wrap this up.
Yes, we absolutely should. Um, okay, that's my last thought. What was
Good
that?
thought. I
The
like
last
it.
10 things.
1 through 10.
Yeah.
So, what should the public know? What's next on the radar? Do we have our next topic?
Oh, next on the radar. Actually, yes, we do, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because we're talking about COVID finally. Like,
Ooh,
yeah,
interesting.
we want to be able to talk through why do people get vaccinated? What are some like reasons for that? Is it for selfish reasons, or like are we actually trying to like be a part of a community and like help everyone?
That's a good
uh,
question. I like it.
let's see. But yeah, we'll have a guest here. Finally, it won't just be me, which is
Or
great.
me.
It's great for everyone. Yes, let's get rid of us. We'll bring in some new faces, or one new face at least. Um, yeah, no, I'm excited for that. Thank you for
Me
bringing that
too.
up.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. So, all right, we'll stay tuned and we will see you soon.
Yes, and if you haven't already, maybe I'll just make a plug that this isn't the only thing that we do. We don't just listen to ourselves talk.
Thankfully, thankfully.
Yes. We're also on social media. We have a website if you ever want to check us out, roomforresearch.com, or on social media, we are Room for Research. So feel free to check out other content.
Yeah, we're all over social media, so don't be a stranger and come show us some love. We would appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, till next time. Bye.
Mhm. Bye for now.
With the sun will breathe.